Weight, size, capacity, features. These are things you can quantify. These are things you can put into spreadsheets, marketing briefs, reference charts. These are the things that brands can sell on a shoestring budget with really zero creativity. And as a result, these are the things that have come to dominate our perspectives and really our priorities on handguns. But when it comes to the Archon Type B, none of it matters, because there's really no way to objectively quantify how much this gun kicks ass. And that's what we're going to talk about today here on Hipster Tactical. What's up, y'all? The Archon Type B. You've heard about it, you probably know something about it, and now I'm going to talk about it. But as I suggested in the intro, the unique merits of this gun are really kind of difficult, if not impossible, to express objectively on paper. The things that make this gun special come to life when you shoot it, and it really shoots unlike any other gun I've tried. It really immerses you in the shooting experience, and it sits low in the hand. You feel very connected to the shots you're taking. The muzzle hardly rises. It's just very engaging. It's a very visceral shooting experience, and that kind of visceral response you get from the gun really informs your sense of shot placement, and it plays to your instincts, and it just makes speed and accuracy feel very instinctive. If you just go by its size, its measurements, its capacity, it's a fairly large, fairly fat striker-fired pistol with a fairly standard capacity. In that respect, it's really nothing special. So that's what I want to focus on with this review. I want to focus on its subjective merits as a shooter, and because they're really quite fantastic. And to kind of better understand that, I think we need a better understanding of how the gun actually works, because that's what makes it shoot the way it does, and that's what makes it different than any other pistol. And you probably know that the Archon pistols are related to the Arsenal Strike 1 pistols. What's called the AF speed lock system is the unique mechanical system that underpins both these pistols. So that's what makes them shoot the way they are, shoot the way they do, and it's kind of what makes them what they are. And long story short, the AF speed lock system, it doesn't tilt. It's a breech locking mechanism that does not tilt like a standard Browning mechanism. There is a separate locking piece, kind of a Y-shaped locking piece that locks the barrel to the slide, and that gets cammed down. So the barrel itself does not have to cam down. So the barrel, as you can see here, just stays straight, stays completely straight as the gun's cycling. So compared to a tilt barrel pistol, that means there's less mass inside the gun, kind of cantilevering up and down when you're shooting, so that it just stays more planted. The impulse is more linear, and you definitely feel that when you're shooting it. And that locking piece only cams down a few millimeters, so it's a very short travel. There's just less moving inside the gun overall than most other pistol actions, and what does move moves less. What that means is you just get this very fast cyclic rate, and like I said, you can definitely feel that as the gun's cycling. Like, the slide moves quick, and like you're barely consciously aware of it, and the gun's back in battery, your sight picture is hardly moved, and you can just shoot the gun super fast. But in addition to the fast cyclic rate, the different mechanics of the gun allow the core components to be laid out differently. If you think about the locking lugs that are necessary for a tilt barrel system, you've got to have these lugs under the barrel, or even the Beretta system where you've got that block that has to pivot under the barrel. This gun doesn't really need any of that, so the barrel can just be mounted lower in the gun, and that contributes to its very low bore axis. But wait, there's more. In addition to, the barrel itself being mounted lower in the frame, you'll notice here on the back how close my hand sits to the slide. And I've got small hands, and if this didn't have this beaver tail there, even my hand would get chewed up by the slide. And what the designers of these pistols have done, they created a sear mechanism that pivots sideways. Most sear mechanisms, like a Glock or just about every other striker mechanism, pivots vertically. So this pivots sideways, so it can lay flat in the back of the gun, and it takes up less vertical space. So that further contributes to this super duper low bore axis. It's lower than just about any other gun I've tried, and I have tried a Steyr M9. I did own one of those briefly. It's the same kind of deal. Its claim to fame is super low bore axis, that kind of a thing, but the execution of it on this gun and its shootability and everything about it is just better. I wasn't crazy about the Steyr. This gun I like a lot more, and as we get into the shootability, that's where this gun really, really shines, and the low bore axis certainly plays into that. So, with respect to shootability, when you combine this super fast cyclic rate with this super low bore axis, you get a gun that shoots super fast. But for me, that's not the most interesting thing. The super low bore axis and the super fast cyclic rate kind of conspire to give this gun a very unique feel, a very direct feel, a feel that really informs how you connect with the gun and how accurate it is, and just really elevates the shootability, I think, to another level. So the first thing you notice when you get one of these in your hand is it feels like you're gripping into the gun as opposed to on top of it or around it. You've got this super high cut grip and the super low slung slide, and you just feel like you're up into this thing. And when you line up your sight picture and put your finger on the trigger, it feels like almost you're touching what you're aiming at, and then bang, you cook off a shot, and it's almost like you feel what you hit. Served up through that uniquely low bore axis with the super fast cyclic rate, the recoil impulse manifests as this really short, intense, percussive pulse. You really feel it. It's very informative, and it just gives you more of a sense of what's going on with each shot than I think most other handgun actions do. It engages your senses in a way that's just unique, and it kind of activates your instincts, and shooting just becomes very intuitive, almost like a reflex when you're running this gun hard. You really end up shooting by instinct, I think, more with this gun than a lot of other guns. Like I said, it shoots super fast, but it's also accurate. If you slow down and just kind of really try to stack holes on holes, like shooting out the 10 ring of a silhouette target is just, it's almost like you don't have to try. I mean, you get a good grip, you get a good sight picture, and anything short of just a total flub of the trigger press shoots the point of aim. I mean, the gun is really, it shoots to point of aim very naturally. You never feel like you're fighting the gun, or you have to squeeze it in an awkward way to get it to shoot where you want to shoot it. It just shoots where you want it to shoot it. And you know, as you're shooting fast, as you increase your shooting speed, I feel like you give up less accuracy as shooting speed increases. So, you know, your double taps tend to land closer together. Your mag dumps hit center mass. Speed and accuracy kind of come together in a really unique way with this gun, and I love that about how it shoots. The gun that I think comes closest to mirroring the very direct kind of engaging shooting experience that this gives you is the HK P9S. I do have a review on the HK P9S called 9mm Nirvana, and it also has that very, like I said, that very direct, very visceral feel, but the P9S does it in a more like tempered, insulated way thanks to its roller delayed blowback system. This is more raw. Like I said, it's just, you feel more of the recoil impulse. It's invigorating and exciting, but it still gives you that immersive feel shot to shot that the HK gives you. It just does it in a different way. The trigger on this gun is really good. I really like the trigger, and it's short and crisp. It's, you know, you've got this kind of almost flat trigger type of trigger shoe, which feels pretty good. And, you know, you come up to some resistance here, there's a little creep, and then it's a very short travel, and you get a nice, crisp, almost understated snap. And it's very good. It's very tactile, it's very responsive, and the reset is very short, and you come right back up to that resistance, and then, you know, again, there's a little bit of squish before you get to the break, but it's a very nice trigger. And I'm not going to say it's a bullseye trigger per se. You know, it is a striker fire trigger, and I don't know what percentage the striker's actually cocked. You know, all these striker fired trigger systems are different in terms of how much they're pre-cocked between shots. It's certainly mostly cocked, but I get the sense there's maybe a little bit of travel that you have to go through with the striker to get it to go off. But all that to say, you know, there is, like I said, a bit of creep, a bit of squish, you know, and the break is kind of buried in that creep. And when I was really trying to dial in my accuracy and like shoot the numbers off a silhouette, I do one drill where I try to shoot the sevens on the silhouette. It was hard to really dial in that break like I can on a hammer-fired pistol, because, like I said, it's just kind of hidden in that few millimeters of squish and creep, and it was a little harder to really dial it in. Now, another thing you will notice, or at least another thing I noticed as the round count went up with this gun and I got more trigger time with it, is while that low bore axis and that fast cyclic rate is great, and it gives you this unique feel in terms of how you connect with the gun and everything, it does kick a bit. I think the internet wants you to believe that a low bore axis equals low recoil, and that is simply not true. Certainly the recoil impulse is different when you lower the bore axis, but you know, if you think about the physics of this, if you think of the gun as a lever and your strong hand is kind of the fulcrum, if the lever's up here, the recoil impulse is going to have more leverage over that fulcrum, and you're going to get more muzzle rise. When you lower the bore axis, the recoil impulse has less leverage and it comes more straight back. But when that recoil comes straight back, it comes more into your hand, it comes more into you, comes more into your bones, and you know, you feel more of the recoil impulse. And you know, granted, there's less muzzle rise, there's less time that you have to wait for your sight picture to drop back down into view, but to me, a gun with a high bore axis and a lot of muzzle rise, like a 226 or a USP, kind of has a soft, bouncy recoil impulse. Like, if you make a car analogy, it's like a, 80s luxury car with a really soft suspension. It feels bouncy and comfortable and soft, and I kind of like that. Whereas a gun like this, that's kind of a lowrider, it feels like a slammed and stanced GTI or something like that. You feel the road. If you're an enthusiast, I think that's generally a good thing. Like we said, your shot recovery time is less, and you feel more of what's going on with the shot. It's just more engaging. So I don't mean to say that this recoil is unpleasant or punishing or bad. I mean, it's a 9mm. It's a big 9mm. It's a fairly heavy 9mm. And if you're a shooter, you're not going to have a problem with the recoil. But I just kind of want to set the record straight on what what a low bore axis means for the recoil impulse, and you know, how that translates to the shooting experience. And the recoil is definitely different, but it's certainly not softer. As far as negatives with this gun, I have a few nitpicky little bullshit things that I'm not crazy about with this gun, and one of them is the default grip texture that comes on these. They call it the grip mapping texture, and it's got these little angled nubs that are angled in such a way that they dig in, kind of dig into your hand against the direction of the recoil impulse. And I think that makes a lot of sense in principle, but to me, the grip mapping texture that came on the first generation of these guns, there's a second generation now without this, but it just didn't deliver. It was uncomfortable. It kind of feels like, you know, some kind of raw gravel in your hand. It just wasn't comfortable, and I found it difficult to squeeze the gun enough to control it as much as I wanted to control it. In my experience, trying to give plastic, like, you know, polymer frame, an aggressive texture just doesn't work. Plastic is just inherently kind of slippery, and no matter how aggressive you make it, it just always seems to slip. You know, the HK USP is another one. I hate the texture on that gun, and it never felt like it gave me a good hold, but it was super abrasive and uncomfortable, and it's kind of the same with this. So, you know, I put the sandpaper tape over it, and I like it a lot better. It's more grippy, it you know, clings to my hands better, and it's honestly more comfortable than this grip mapping texture. Another thing, just kind of a gimmick, is this ridge that they put under the beaver tail, and you've probably read about this, but like the claim with this is it's supposed to like act as a tendon depressor in a way, and you know, you grip it and it's supposed to help close your hand around the gun. I don't even really notice it when I'm shooting it until maybe, like, I don't know, 100, 150 rounds in. I start to realize it's there, and I can feel it a little bit. It's not uncomfortable, it doesn't hurt, it just seems like kind of a why bother kind of feature. I don't see why they had to add these gimmicky features to this gun when it's, you know, its merits lie in its unique mechanics and its low bore axis, and that are just kind of inherent to its design. It didn't need this gimmicky bullshit to be a fantastic gun. Another thing is the mag release, and this is not just me, I've heard several people mention this. It's huge, and it's kind of sharp, and while a big mag release I think is generally a good thing, you know, it's easier to hit, easier to find. This, it kind of, your strong hand rests against the bottom edge of it, and it's just kind of uncomfortable. I mean, it's not a huge deal, like you just kind of move your finger down and get on with your life, but it's just kind of annoying, and it's like, they didn't think this through enough. I hope that the new generations of this, which are being imported by PTR, maker of G3 rifle clones, I hope that they offer like just a less obnoxious mag release, or maybe there'll be an aftermarket option. Also, sights. These are, I think they're called the True 8 or Real 8 sights, and they're kind of a, you know, a 2-dot configuration. I'm not crazy about them. The standard sights that I usually see on the Archon guns are like fiber optic sights, so I'd kind of like to try those, but this is what came on my gun, which I bought used. And, you know, 2-dot sights I think make sense in principle, but if you notice here, the rear dot is just kind of below the top of this ledge. So what that means basically is, as you're getting your sight picture, the front dot disappears behind that ledge before it, you know, visually makes contact with the rear dot. So basically you're shooting without a front dot is what this means, or like a half cut off front dot. As long as you're aware of that and you just kind of like, okay, I need to consciously bury that front dot behind this ledge, or I'm going to shoot high, it's fine. I was able to make it work, but it's still fantastic groups with you know, as you've seen. But I would like to try some other sights with this gun. And then finally, I know this pisses a lot of people off, but for me, as light and short as this trigger is, I would want a manual safety if this was going to be like a regular carry gun. And to me, it's basically a single action trigger that I have to carry cocked and unlocked, and not crazy about that. I'd love to see, you know, Archon offer a manual safety option. I doubt they will, because that's just not a thing anymore, because Eric Bana in Black Hawk Down told us we don't need manual safety. So that's where the industry has gone. And but it, you know, it's a big gun anyway, and It's probably not going to be a go-to carry gun for me anyway, but I love the gun regardless, and I love shooting it, and I love owning it, and it's a great gun beyond that. And I'm not saying that it shouldn't be a carry gun for you, just for my personal preferences. Trigger this light and short, I want a manual safety. Also, I need to touch on reliability. This gun has been 100% reliable for me. I've put a little over 500 rounds through it, never had one issue with it, and I purposely did not clean the gun for the last few range trips, and probably the last 200 or 300 rounds I did not clean the gun, and it sat for a couple weeks in between some of those range trips. The oil kind of congealed with the carbon and everything like that. The thing was filthy, and it never bobbled. I mean, it was 100% reliable, and that is pretty consistent from what I hear about these guns. The Archon version of the Arsenal design, the speed lock design, I have rarely heard anything about problems with reliability. The exception being the very first batches of these guns that came over in 2018 had out-of-spec firing pin springs, and that's kind of a well-known fact. If you look up videos on these from that time frame around 2018, you see people having, a slew of light primer strikes. If you look up Honest Outlaw, he has a video, and he's getting like a light primer strike every other trigger pull. I want to say Military Arms Channel had the same experience, but that was rectified almost immediately, and that went away. And these guns have been good to go since then, as far as I can tell. Now, interestingly, the Arsenal Strike 1 pistols, which are, again, kind of the sibling of these guns, those are available today too. And I think everyone thought the original Arsenal Strike 1 kind of went away and the Archon replaced it. Apparently that's not the case. The Arsenal Strike 1s are made by Tanfoglio in Italy, as far as I know, and these are made by a Swiss defense contractor, the Archon version, a Swiss defense contractor called RUAG in the European Union, in various factories in Germany, Hungary, and the Czech Republic. I have a pretty detailed account of the backstory and how these guns came to be, how they developed, and how all the branding changes happened and everything like that. So check that out on hipstertactical.com. But suffice to say, like I said, they're both available today, and I have heard better things about the Archon in terms of reliability. If you look up videos on the Arsenal Strike 1, you don't have to look too far before you start seeing people having problems with them as far as feeding and everything like that. I will say that was kind of the initial batch of the Arsenal Strike 1s. Most of the videos cover the initial batch that came over in like 2014, 2015, so maybe the ones that are currently being manufactured by Tanfoglio and imported by American Tactical Imports are a little more consistent, and they've worked out some of those bobbles. Not sure, but I think, based on everything I've learned and my own experience, you are good to go if you get an Archon Type B, and they are currently being offered, like I said, by PTR Imports, the maker of G3 rifle clones in the United States. I've heard nothing but good things about them. So that just kind of brings us full circle, and this gun is important and worthwhile because of its unique subjective merits in terms of how it shoots. There's just no way to express on paper what makes this gun so cool and shoots so well. I hope as we start to see more reviews and more coverage of this gun and it gets more play online, that people start to look past just its nominal metrics in terms of capacity and size and all that stuff, and really start to give it credit for its unique brand of shootability. And it really does bring a unique brand of shootability to the handgun market. So at the end of the day, I feel like the Archon / Arsenal design is just kind of a triumph of a unique idea. And I love to see unique ideas in handguns. And the cool thing about this one is it's executed well. It's a unique idea done well, and it seems to be gaining traction. People aren't just dismissing it and not getting it. Even now, I have seen one of the designers of this gun, Nicola Bandini, marketing he started his own company, I guess. He's got a new version of this gun that uses that locking piece. It rotates. So that could be interesting, and you can see some YouTube videos of that. So the idea is proliferating, and we're seeing more stuff kind of developing around it. So I think that's awesome. I applaud, you know, PTR for importing this gun, and I hope they continue to expand the platform and just make it cool and make it available and make it what it should be and could be. So that's the review on the Archon Type B. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you want some more depth and detail on this gun, especially about the background and stuff like that, check out the written review on hipstertactical.com. So thank you again for your time, and I always appreciate you guys watching. Until next time, this is Hipster Tactical, and I am Matt.